talk about various different subjects, and we may be exploring into many different areas. But one thing that I would like for you to keep in mind is that no matter what area we're exploring, we are always indicating to the same point. The areas explored may be different, the words may be different, but essentially we're always exploring the same fundamental thing, which is deepening your awareness. I'm reminded of one incident in Zen. There was a student who came to see a master, and he asked him, how can we become free from hot and cold? I would like you to understand the meaning of his question. If you think he's talking about literally how do we become free from the temperatures of hot and cold, then you're probably missing the point. Our life is always subject to a change, always subject to a flux. And one of the reasons why we're creating tremendous suffering in our lives is because in the midst of this flux, we're pretending as if so many things are permanent when they are impermanent. Is it not true that everything in life is always in a constant stream of change? And in this constant stream of change, we want to seek some amount of security, some amount of protection. We want to build so many comfort zones around ourselves, not understanding that this is a bit like a river stream is moving towards you, a current is moving towards you. Yes, through your effort to arrange certain situations the way you want in life, maybe to some extent you can walk against the current, but sooner or later you're bound to drain your energies, because the nature of life is in such a way that life is such an unpredictable field of chaos. And in the midst of life, unless we can learn how to be involved, totally involved, and yet in such a way that nothing rules over you, you don't become enslaved to the process, whether it's the processes of the body or whether it's the processes of the mind. Because after all, every experience we have in life, what is life? Life is just an experience. So, to put it on a more basic level, unless we learn how to become involved in the experiences of the mind without becoming enslaved to this whole process, now our well-being is always hanging on by a thread. All it needs for something to disturb it, to come crashing down, is something which you dislike to happen. And if we really understand that the situations of life is never 100% within our grasp or control, then we will understand the significance of taking responsibility for our own inner well-being. So if at any time in your life you feel that there's some kind of discontentment, maybe nothing around you in life is necessarily going wrong, but still you feel that you're not at ease, or that there is some suffering, then this is a message from existence that's telling you just one very simple thing, that you're not paying attention. So the student comes to see the master, and he asks him, how do we become free from hot and cold? What he's asking is, how can we become free from the dualities of life, the dualities of existence? Light, darkness, pleasantness, unpleasantness, birth, death, creation, destruction. Like this, everything in nature is according to a duality, according to the polar opposites. So what he's asking really is, how can we be involved in the polar opposites, in the dualities of existence, and yet at the same time we not becoming ruled by it? So the master answers him. He gives him a very simple reply. So simple, so straightforward. he says, when you feel hot, feel completely hot. And when you feel cold, feel thoroughly cold. What he's saying is that whatever is arising in your experience, be in tune with the moment. Don't be argumentative against it, because anyway, whatever is happening either in the situations of life or whatever is happening in the experience of the mind, this is very unpredictable business. So what are you going to do? You have to learn how to face the moment, but in such a way that you don't become ruled by anything. As far as our experience is concerned, most experiences that people know of, it's just either pleasant experiences or unpleasant experiences. So it's not always the case that unpleasant experiences is creating suffering. Any moment that you lose your clarity, that's where it hurts. So even if love is arising, fine, I allow the love to be there. I learn how to observe, and yet the love doesn't rule over me. Or let's say hate is arising, or fear, or anger, or anxiety, compassion. It can be just about anything. But the moment I start forming any kind of craving or attachment to what arises in my experience, now I lose all clarity of vision. So it's a bit like this. A meditative consciousness or a meditative awareness. It's a bit like this. Your mind is here, your body is here, maybe your emotion is somewhere over here, your thought processes are somewhere over here, but the witness within you, in yoga it's called sakshi, the witness. That witness is always stands alone. A little bit of distance between the witness in you and the experience of the body and the mind. Once that there comes this small distance, now whatever is happening in the mind and body, it's impossible for it to disturb your silence. So there's another intelligence within a human being. What is that intelligence which is seeing through the eyes, hearing through the ears, smelling through the nose, tasting through the tongue? As if the mind and the senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, these are like windows. But what's that intelligence which is seeing through all this? So once you come into communion with that level of your being, then naturally you will become silent. In the midst of the chaos of life, in the midst of the flux of existence, your silence remains undisturbed, and there comes a crystal clear clarity. So the whole process of yoga, it's not to negate the involvement in life, because after all, how else can you be deeply involved into the process of life unless you're non-selective? If you approach life with heaps of attachments, cravings, expectations, unfulfilled desires, what it means in a certain way is that it's as if you've written a contract. You've signed a contract that says that you're going to live life with all kinds of conditions for your well-being, conditions for your happiness, that unless these conditions are fulfilled, I'm not going to be willing to settle for any kind of contentment in life. That's what it means to be, if you're living life according to all kinds of unfulfilled desires. And naturally, if you've been living in a field of unfulfilled desires, it's unrealistic to expect that, they're just going to disappear into thin air like that. No, if that's the field where you've been living in, then that's exactly the place where you have to begin. You have to understand why your mind is being ruled by unfulfilled desires, why the mind is not willing to settle for whatever's arising in the moment. Why are you being argumentative? Why is it your head is saying one thing, your heart is saying something else? Your instincts is saying something else. Why is it that there are all these voices in your mind giving you so many different stories? And in the midst of all these voices, what are you going to do? You have to learn to bring all those voices together in one harmony, in one symphony, in such a way that whatever's happening in your experience, you remain grounded. You remain the master of your life. Yes, definitely situations around you, that's definitely beyond our control. But what is the experience that your mind is manufacturing? Now that's 100% created by you. World, what does the world do? It just gives us information to our senses. Now what the mind interprets from this information, what it manufactures out of this, now this is entirely our own doing. So why is it that one person experiencing one situation, he may become disturbed, another person experiencing one situation, maybe compassion arises, another person experiencing the same situation, maybe he will remain totally indifferent, another person, anger arises. Why is this? The programming is different. The conditionings are different. So much of what we're doing in the process of yoga, it's not about twisting and bending the body in different ways. This is about self-inquiry. Because even if the body is perfectly healthy, without this penetrating insight into the mind, why the mind is doing the things that it is doing, then we'll be settling for all kinds of temporary solutions in life, but never a permanent solution. And when I say a permanent solution, I mean we should not be postponing our well-being to tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And this is what has been happening in the society. We've been trying to settle all kinds of problems through changing the outside. For centuries, how often has it been that so many social revolutions have come and gone, so many political systems have come and gone, and of course everybody has their own ideas of how things should be done, how things should be run, right? Suppose you don't have, it's not just religions that have been fighting in the world. Imagine you removed religion completely. Still people will find other excuses for violence. In politics, politicians are quarreling with one another. One person thinks the society should be democratic. One person's a communist, one person's a Republican. And we've been investing, if you look at the history of humanity, we've been investing so much time, effort, and energy into trying to control the outside. Nothing has been done to transform the mind which has created the society. Yes, creating an outside situation the way we would like, it can create a certain atmosphere. But essentially, most of our human problems, they have roots at the level of the human mind. And unless we address the root causes of why the mind is not, we're not seeing things out of total clarity, why is it that we're creating so much unnecessary suffering? Naturally, if you're creating suffering within yourself, aren't you bound to spread it around? Because our actions in the world, it will reflect what is your inner condition. To me, no action by itself is right or wrong, good or bad, sin or virtue. Because suppose I'm sitting here totally silent, the body is totally still. I can sit here, close my eyes, but at the level of the mind there's heaps of chaos and noise. Is that silence? Or I can sit here and bow down, but is there any humbleness in the act of bowing down? No, it's the inner environment, the inner atmosphere, the inner awareness. which determines the qualities of our action. So if we act out of clarity, no matter what we do, our actions will carry the same flavor. And if we act out of unawareness, in exactly the same way, no matter what we do, no matter where we go, whether we're in the midst of in the marketplace, whether we're in the temple, whether we're in the Himalayas, it doesn't matter. We'll be carrying our unawareness as if it's a shadow following us. So this is part of what the whole process of yoga is. Just a very simple process. Just deepening your awareness at any moment of our life. What are we faced with? Just this present moment. So that's the only place where inquiry can begin. That's the only place where investigation can begin. So to me, this is the essence of practice. It's not just about sitting in the meditation or sitting in the class for, let's say, an hour or two. Then you get up, continue on the way, and you fall back very quickly to the old patterns. Our practice has to be continuous, from morning to evening. You watch over yourself. There's an Arabic word for meditation that's used amongst Sufis. To me, it's one of the enormously insightful meanings of the quality of meditation. And the word for it is muraqqaba. And muraqqaba, it literally means to watch over. To watch over yourself. And that can be done anywhere. Right now, you're sitting. Are you aware of the sensation of the body? Or are you aware of your thought processes? How much of the time when we're experiencing something, we're completely gone in our imagination. But this moment, it's as if we are seeing things, but we remain blind. We have ears, we're hearing everything, the information's coming in, yet we're remaining absolutely deaf. And there's a huge difference between hearing and listening, isn't there? Hearing just means sound waves are entering and beating on your eardrums. But listening is such a totally different quality. When you listen to something intently, when you're absorbed, then there's pure attention, pure experience. You see the candle flame burning, but in your experience, there's no separation between you and the candle flame, between the observer and the observed. So, one thing is that as long as there's this feeling of separation between the ego and the outside, the inner and the outer, then there's division. Once division comes, once fragmentation comes like this, now naturally there's conflict. So when you're hot, feel thoroughly hot. Don't be argumentative with the moment. When cold, be completely cold. Let things come and go as they please. Just one thing is essential. Whatever's arising in one's experience, don't cling to it and give it too much importance.